Watch and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I am looking to discuss Stephen King's short story, Trucks. This was, Christ, I can't remember where and when this was originally published. I'm going to take a guess and say that it was most likely published in an issue of Cavalier magazine, Playboy, or Penthouse. I'm going to take another wild guess and say it was published in 1977. And originally, what I'm discussing here, of course, this is in the anthology Night Shift that was released in 1978. I was going to say 76, 1978. So that's, of course, the first place and last place I read it because I wasn't alive back there at the 70s. And even had I been, I don't think I would have been old enough to buy Penthouse and shit. So if it was in Penthouse, I wasn't going to be reading it. But yeah, this is essentially the Maximum Overdrive for anybody that knows the movie adaptation of this. This is the short story that inspired the feature-length film that was, of course, written and directed by Stephen King. Now, of course, Stephen King doesn't think too much of the movie. He said that he doesn't remember making the movie because he was just blitzed on cocaine for the entire production, and he hates the movie. He hates the movie. He can find nothing good to say about the movie. Now, me personally, I saw that movie. It was like one of the first horror movies I was allowed to see when I was a little kid. And so it had such a big impact. And then you coupled that with the really fun violence, like the dog with the cop car, the toy of the cop car in its mouth. And then like the automatic knife chopping into the chick's hand. And then the kid being run over by like, what was that, the bulldozer? Not the bulldozer, that was the steamroller. And then, oh my God, dude, the coach at the baseball game when he gets demolished by the Coke machine, when all the cans of pop are firing out at him. And of course, none of that is in this. The story Trucks takes place 100% at the truck stop, where the majority of the film takes place, where Emilio Estevez falls in love with him, meets the chick, they kind of fall for each other, and there's the thing with the preacher there. And what's her name is in the movie? Lisa Simpson. What's her name? Yeardley Smith, I think. She's in this, and then so that's all missing. There's none of those characters. There's just a group of truckers in the truck stop as the world ends, essentially. And unfortunately, there's no end in sight for this, for the people who are kind of having to run this crucible here or tossed into this gauntlet. Because at the end of the movie, it looks like that comet or whatever it was passing and everything was going back to normal. And yet the survivors from the gas station were like, yo, the truck stop, sorry, we're like, fuck this. We're taking off to an island where there's no vehicles allowed. But in this, unfortunately, things aren't that hopeful. This is, there's absolutely no romance in this. The power goes out at 8:30 p.m. and that's when everything just shifts. And the trucks turn the people in the truck stop into gas slaves, essentially. They, just like they did in the movie, they were forced to fill up the gas tanks of all the trucks that never stopped coming to the truck stop. And then just when they ran out of gas, much like it happens in this, the tanks run dry, the pumps run dry, sorry, then they just ship in another tanker filled with gas to refill the station with so that they can continue to pump gas. And that happens in the movie, but the movie, it seems like there's also, it doesn't hurt that in the basement of the truck stop in the movie, there's an arsenal. I think they even have like a couple like RPG type bazooka things down there. That doesn't exist here. These people are literally just gas slaves, and that is the long and short of it. The bulldozer that plays a somewhat significant part in the movie plays like it is the ultimate bad news thing here because they employ it so that it can just intimidate the humans into pumping gas for the machines, and then it starts to kind of hunt the main guy, who I think would be Emilio Estevez's character, and one of the kids. And I think the kid might have been the son of the guy that works there, who was playing baseball in the movie. I think that's the kid in this. I'm not 100% if these characters are exactly going to line up either, just because it does seem to be, it's a little messier because there's not a lot of names given here. Well, anyways, the kid is killed by the bulldozer in this, and the bulldozer's like hunting them around the truck stop, kind of. And that is the story. That's the long and short of the story, is they become slaves to the machines. And they try to rationalize things for themselves by discussing how well, despite the fact that we're in this rough spot right now, in time, of course, seeing as how machines can't procreate, everyone's like, they're just going to be heaps of rust. So in 3 decades' time, we're not going to have too much to worry. Well, hell, less than a decade's time, really. You're not going to have too much to worry about because the majority of the vehicles and the majority of the machinery in the world will break down without maintenance, without somebody showing care and concern. You know, I mean, brakes go on cars, right? You hit the car hard enough, and everything goes on the car, and that will need to be fixed. And if there's no people around to fix it anymore, the vehicles will die. And this story, it feels more claustrophobic. You feel that sense of loss and dread that the characters are dealing with so much more efficiently than I did in the movie, because the movie was so colorful and it was so bright, and you know, it had the Green Goblin truck in it, and it was cool. Like, it had like a lot of like cool factors going for it. But this story is devoid of all those things. The story is just ugly and sad. And the dude who the character is played by Giancarlo Esposito. At the start of this, the guy that goes in and he sees everything freaking out, all the arcade machines and the cigarette machines going haywire, so he helps himself to all the quarters from the arcade cabinets, as well as he loads up on a bunch of free cigarettes, and then he's sort of enticed to play one of the arcade games, and he is electrocuted. That doesn't happen in this. That character still exists. He gets to loot the cigarette machine like it really matters, because, you know, you're going to die pumping gas for the machines. And that's how the story ends. The story ends with the main guy. He looks up to the sky and he sees 2 planes fly by. And he says that, like, he hopes to himself that they're piloted by people, but he knows they're probably not. And the implication, I think, that King is attempting to sort of drive home with that statement at the end, the very end of the story, is they're taking over the sky as well. You know, if they can have any kind of, like, they can fly military jets and Apaches and such. So humans are in trouble, and there's no way out of it. Like, unlike the movie, which had a much better end, which I know, again, feature films, you need romance, you need things to sort of even out in the end. You can't really have the bad guys win a lot of the times. Audiences tend to be turned off by that sort of thing. But this was great. This was scary. This was scary in a way that the movie wasn't, because the movie is just so much fun. There's nothing fun about this story. You're going to be a gas slave. Like, it's essentially like Skynet taking over, basically. And yeah, I think actually that is where I'm going to leave it. So, like always, thank you so much for hanging out with me for, Jesus Christ, almost 8 minutes while I discuss trucks from Stephen King's 1978 anthology Night Shift, or wherever the hell it was originally published. Like always, if you like this story or you like this review, don't forget to go and do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, like always, never forget that the world is actually a better place because you are in it. I'm getting out of here. Have a good night.